Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Sports. I am your host, Kris Dufour. This is our inaugural program, podcast. Spotlight on Sports is a brand new addition to the Berkshire's family. For those of you not familiar with my name, I used to be the North Adams Transcript sports editor when it was a newspaper still in town from 1995 to 2004. And before that, I was a sports writer in Texas and Georgia and New York. So I had a 15-year sports writing career and finished up. And in the last 17 years, I've been sports information associate director at Williams College. So Berkshires and I have teamed up. We're going to do some spotlight on local sports, and we'll tackle a lot of different formats. But this is our first dive into the pool, so to speak. And my very first guest, I'm sure most of you know him well, Drury graduate. I met him 26 years ago when he was still just a little collegiate. And he was playing, I believe he had just started playing in the NECBL, the New England College, what they used to call the Wood Bat League. North Adams native Sean McGrath, welcome to the program.
Great, Kris. Great to see you, and great to be your guest, especially for the inaugural one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a fun 45 minutes here. Sean, you are now, of course, the commissioner of what is called the New England League, I believe, and today, when we're taping this, Thursday, June 3rd, is opening day of the season. And I want to say this is is this the start of your 10th year as commissioner?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was November 2012, you were hired as commissioner. Of course, you have a long history with North Adams and Joe Wolf Field in particular. I read something somewhere, if I remember correctly, you were a bat boy over at Joe Wolf, starting around 4 years old. Your father, of course, was Tom McGrath, who's a legendary Drury baseball coach, member of the Hall of Fame, and won a couple state championships, which I'm sure, and I believe you were on the last one, 1990, or would you just miss it?
Just missed it, unfortunately. That team was loaded, though. It was fun to be around.
Yeah. So were you a bat boy for that team as well?
Yes, I guess I was still, I may have been the oldest bat boy in Massachusetts, which allowed me to be at practice and, do the dirt, the grunt work and the dirty work, but still be around the team, take ground balls with, a state champion shortstop and take batting practice with a 5th round draft pick in Kevin Aubin. And the shortstop is Dan Congello, who went to the Citadel to play shortstop. And so it was a privilege to be a bat boy on that team, and I was happy to do the grunt work.
Now that sets you up. I mean, obviously you had a lot of baseball in your life at that point, and we'll go forward a little bit before we go backwards. But you went on to play for University of New Hampshire, until they tragically, or whatever the word might be, eliminated the baseball program. It was tragic for you, I know. Now the interesting thing, if I remember correctly, when I met you, you were playing for Danbury in the New England Collegiate Bat League, the Westerniers, or is it the Westerniers or the Westerners?
Yep.
The Westerners. And but you were going to go to the University of Connecticut to play ball, were you not?
Correct. Yes, that was, it's one of those situations where it's bad news, take a little bit of time to recover from getting the news that this will be the last season of college baseball at University of New Hampshire. And then you start thinking about, what are you going to do now? What's next? What's the future? So we actually, several of us started getting re-recruited again as juniors at college. And so I chose between University of Maine and UConn. Maine was in the same conference, and UConn was in a very different conference with legendary coach Andy Baylock. And I had some friends on the team from other summer or other baseball experiences. And I said, for 1 year, let's switch it up. We'll go UConn, have a blast. And I still have to go back to UNH to get my college degree anyways. So I was going to go there and, play ball, try to get drafted and have a good time and take a few courses. But in the middle of that summer, I never made it to UConn because I was able to sign with the Mets.
With the New York Mets, yeah, and you played with the Mets in the minor leagues for, I want to say, 4 years, 3.5 seasons.
3 years. Yep.
Yeah.
Years, 2 spring trainings.
And you played in. Did you end up ever playing in Pittsfield?
Yeah, my second
Yeah.
year made it to Pittsfield, which was, obviously that's where I grew up, watching the Pittsfield Cubs, the Pittsfield Mets, the Astros. That was home. I can't even count how many number of games I watched there, and how many foul balls I got chasing at Wacona Park. But I was there for about maybe less than 2 weeks, just barely 2 weeks. And we were on a road trip in New Jersey, and I got called up to Columbia, South Carolina. So from somewhere in New Jersey, I hopped on a plane in Pennsylvania and flew to Hickory, North Carolina, and never returned to Pittsfield. So my time there was short-lived, but it was really neat to have that moment.
Yeah, that had to be special, that first at bat at Wacona Park after growing up around here. And then you played in Kingston too, did you not, for a little while? Kingston, Tennessee, or
Kingsport, Tennessee. That's
Tennessee.
where they shipped me off to right after I signed. I was playing with Danbury in the league, in the New England League, and then signed, and 2 days later flew into Tri-City Airport and Kingsport, Tennessee, and Bristol and Johnson City, that area. And that was start of the run with the Mets and the minors, and a lot of good experiences in the Appalachian League. For me, it felt like home. We're in the Appalachian Mountains here, and most of that league is in the Appalachian Mountains or the hills. So I had comfort. It felt normal to me, which was good.
And that was, like you said, the start of an incredible journey. All right, let's go backwards though before we get too forward. I want to talk to you about growing up in North Adams. Obviously, your dad heavily involved in baseball. So when was the baseball seed planted in your head? I mean, did you have were you one of those kids with the big wiffle ball bat and the ball, like when you were 3 taking cuts, or?
Yeah,
I mean, when did it start?
In 1978, I was 2, and that's the year they won the state championship.
That's right. Yeah.
Photos, black and white photos back then of being in the dugout, in whatever baseball gear that I could fit into. So yeah, pretty much from then on, I think my mother was happy to send me off to practice as long as I could help out or behave. And so I was his right-hand man, to help my father in drills, oftentimes catching the ball for infield drills, outfield drills, setting up drills, breaking down equipment. And, whenever I could, I would try to participate and copy the guys, including trying to copy and keep up with them when they were doing the running drills and the calisthenics and sit-ups and push-ups. So from an early age, it was great to be exposed to that. It certainly set me up well for my early days in Little League.
Yeah, I'm sure you stood out a little bit.
Yeah, I had 2 months of practice before tryouts, I think.
You took, obviously you were able to get a scholarship to UNH, so your baseball career went well from that time you played here. You played Legion ball, you played for Drury High. But what I wanted to focus on is, what do you think was what set you apart? How did you get an advantage in an effort to kind of, not everybody can go on to play collegiate ball, and then for the professionally, what did were you and your dad doing things as you got older in the backyard, or was it a progression, like you said, from mimicking guys that you saw on that 78 team, or even the 90 team? I mean, what really stood out to you as far as the learning process in baseball? Because it's not an easy sport.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I have a nephew now, and who's young and getting in the game, and it can be frustrating. It's a hard sport, and sports like lacrosse, are taking off, and soccer are taking off, and you don't have that hand-eye coordination and element that makes baseball, really difficult.
Right.
But certainly it was a privilege, and it gave me a leg up, certainly being around the game as much as I was able to with my father. I mean, for me growing up, it was a blast as soon as the baseball season came and I could go to indoor practice. I could go on the bus with the team. I could be in the dugouts on the sidelines. I mean, certainly that gave me an advantage that, a lot of people didn't have. As far as my father and I mean, besides being around the game, one of the things I'll cherish forever, we had ping pong table downstairs in the basement. And it wasn't a finished basement. It was, cement floor and walls. And we had couple lights that were suspect. And after dinner for many years growing up, we used to go down and play for an hour, hour and a half and be completely drenched playing ping pong.
Yeah.
And while I knew ping pong, hand-eye coordination, quick hands, at that time, probably he knew what he was doing. I didn't really know, but that certainly, I think, improved my hand-eye coordination and hand quickness, which, I'd like to say I was a good hitter growing up. I wasn't quite Tim Flaherty with the power and the at bat, but, I think my defense and my hands and footwork actually, what kind of carried me through the minors, where I always had, I knew I could always play somewhere in the field offensively. Again, that kind of, maybe I met my match in professional baseball, but that and just playing the game, watching the game. I mean, I think that's one thing that a lot of kids nowadays that they don't do enough of, whether it's soccer, whether it's baseball, lacrosse, you name the sport. I think you can learn a lot from being around it, watching, and that I don't think there's enough of it. And I think those kids who do love the sport so much that they want to watch it on TV or in person, that gives them an advantage as well.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that the hand-eye coordination story you told and ping pong, of course, is really important in the evolution of someone's instincts. Almost, it almost becomes an instinct to catch something. It's. I remember I played a lot of ping pong. I never, of course, played baseball professionally, collegiately, but I remember spending a ton of time. I was telling this story to my wife the other day in our garage, where we had a fireplace. The back of the fireplace in the living room was in the garage, and it was brick. And you would just throw the tennis ball against the base of it, and because you didn't know where the ball was coming back to you. And I did that for 9-10 hours a day till my dad came out and told me he couldn't take it anymore. And I mean, even today at my age, if something falls off the counter, I can't walk straight, but I can catch something that falls off the counter because it's just right there,
Yeah.
It's so I mean, you can't undersell that, because that really becomes, and if you get to a level where you're working on that, those instincts, they just help you so much. So really, you're right. You watch the game, you learn the game, and you do things to help you get better, like developing hand-eye coordination, and especially in baseball, that's so important, at the plate.
Yeah.
So I love that story. I can just see you and your dad playing ping pong down there for hours at a time, walking away sweating.
I won't repeat my record, but it wasn't very good. I think it took till my junior year in high school before I beat him 2 out of 3 matches. I mean, he was a phys ed teacher up at Drury High School for countless number of years, and he only lost 2 matches. So he knew how to compete. He had good hands himself, and he wasn't going to give me a break, to say the least. So it was a big moment when that victory came.
You still remember it to this day?
Oh yeah. There weren't too many thereafter either, but
I do.
I had a long day at work that day.
I completely understand that. Let's talk about choosing a college when it came time. What were you looking for? I mean, obviously baseball is big, but I'm sure you were thinking a little bit about a degree anyway. But why New Hampshire? What stood out for New Hampshire?
A great point. I mean, I think I have a junior now in high school, and I kind of look at her and I kind of go back to where I was coming out of Drury High School. What was I thinking as a junior in high school for college? And it wasn't as far along as she is, quite frankly, as far as thinking about the future. I was definitely at that time thinking about, professional baseball and, a roadmap to the minors. But I also had reality, which was I understood the numbers. I understood that college education is going to be something I will need to use at some point in my life. I may never get a chance to play pro ball. There's no guarantees, and certainly no guarantees on ever making it to the major leagues. So I was adamant about college education. And, you know, it's the recruiting world back then was a little bit different than it is nowadays. You know, there weren't 100 AAU ball clubs. There weren't national tournaments everywhere and anywhere. Back then, I think one of the biggest things for me, besides high school, was American Legion state tournaments.
Right.
And the Bay State games, quite frankly, I attribute, you know, a lot to the opportunities that I had available to me. You know, playing down at Harvard for 2 summers for the Bay State games, where every college coach in the Northeast was in attendance. You know, that really having a good tournament, and we had a lot of players off that team go collegiately, play collegiately, and certainly Tim Flaherty at the top of the list there. That was, you know, it was almost a little bit easier maybe back then because there weren't so many different places to go, or, you know, AAU tournaments to attend. You had a couple of showcases to go and you know, perform, and then coaches would start calling and writing letters. And I really narrowed it down to University of New Hampshire, Providence College, and then a school that got a hold of me in South Carolina, Winthrop,
Okay.
in the Big South. So I actually took an official visit down there, and Providence and UNH were my official visits. And, you know, UNH financially, you know, they put the best package by far and away together. And by that time, my parents had to put two of their daughters through St. Michael's College and Providence College. So that's a tall task. And I certainly understood the world that they were living with college loans. And so financially, that was coming into play. I talked to a couple of veteran coaches, one being Andy Baylock at UConn, and he just said, you know, do what's right, but if you're good enough to play professional baseball, they're going to find you at any of those 3 schools. So don't worry about that. You know, start looking at, you know, the economics of the decision as well as the academics. And, you know, I can't say I knew exactly what I wanted to be coming out of college. So, you know, I was going to probably take general business administration or something along those lines. And so I felt all 3 of those schools could, you know, provide me a great education in that regard. And, you know, so I chose UNH, and I guess the rest is history. Obviously, I didn't know that they would be dropping the sport my junior year. And ironically, Providence College dropped the sport the year before that. So 2 of the 3 schools no longer have baseball that I was considering, which is
wow. I mean, that was just shocking when UNH did that, though. I remember. I mean, since then, a lot of schools have started dropping sports and evaluating athletics, but that was a shocker back then. You know, not a lot of schools were dropping sports at that point.
No. And then Providence was the best team in New England. So when they dropped, that was eye-opening to all of us. And here I am thinking, oh, I guess I made the right decision going to University of New Hampshire. And then a year later, not so much. We have the same scenario. But, you know, you and I talked about once before just about sport and all the life lessons that it teaches. And, you know, baseball, you fail a lot. And sometimes it's not fun accepting that you're going to make an out 7 out of 10 times and that's good. You know, you might make an out 8 out of 10 times. You know, and you lose games, you win some and you lose some. And, you know, being able to bounce back from a blow like that, like you just lost your senior season at your alma mater. You know, I think sport, you know, has partly trained me and to bounce back from adversity and bounce back from, you know, tough losses, personally, professionally, athletically, whatever.
It develops a mindset where you know, you have confidence, but that confidence also comes to play in times of mistakes or defeat, if you will, you know, and you have that confidence in yourself to continue. And I think that's really something that's underrated in life. You need to be able to make a mistake and continue being a confident human being and not let it beat you down so much. You know, I think that too many people, that seems to happen where they get in a place they can't bounce back from, you know, and that's sport and athletics in general can really help you with that, among a lot of other things. Well, let's jump forward to the professional part of your life. You're in baseball anyway. You're with the Mets. But just in general, those 3 years. Let's talk about, I know you were at camp in Port St. Lucie with the Mets, and of course, we talked about the places you played. When you look back at it now, what was that experience like for you, and what stands out?
I, I think you get over at first it's just kind of overwhelming. You kind of go into that locker room, you have a trainer that gives you a number and a jersey, and you have your name up on in the locker, and it says Mets on the jersey. And I just think about like Koperniak, who's down in spring training with the Cardinals now, and
Right.
Mob and I were talking, and just to see his nameplate up on his locker with the Cardinals, it's like gives you chills to think about that. So that was a big moment, and then it comes back to you've played baseball all your life, and at some point you're the small fish in a big pond. And in that moment in Kingsport, Tennessee, I'm looking around that locker room, and the first round draft pick from California who breaks bats over his knees, Robert Stratton. Some people from the Pittsfield Met games might remember him. He was an outfielder. He's a couple lockers down, and it's like, do I fit? Do I belong? And
Right.
I'm sure I wasn't the only one asking that same question. There's another shortstop from Lynn, Mass on the team who I got to be friendly with. And, here we are from Massachusetts competing for playing time together. And it was definitely a period of time, adjustment time, where you're trying to prove to yourself, like, yeah, I do belong. But we're all in it together. I mean, we were all young and green. But confidence goes a long way in athletics. We all know that. The more confident you are between the lines, it's going to allow you to relax and show your true self. So, that was a big adjustment. And then once you realize that you do belong and do fit, for me, it was, I was never a starter. So I always had to try to keep myself ready to be, to do well whenever they called out my name, whether it was, during a game or when I was replacing somebody. I was versatile. I played second, short, third. Over the course of my 3 years, I played every position except pitcher and catcher and center field. And even catching, I was in the bullpen for several days as the emergency catcher because we were down to one catcher. So I was warming up all these pitchers. I would have been ready to go into the game if something happened. But yeah, it was no regrets. I loved, maybe not in the moment, but, I look back and I kind of chuckle about, getting on the bus at 11:30 at night, sleeping for 8 hours as you drive north on 95, past all the cities, up to Maryland, get to a hotel at 8:30 in the morning, sleep a little bit more, go have lunch at 1 or 2 o'clock and get to the ballpark at 3. And that was just, sounds overwhelming when I explain it right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
just what we did. Like,
Right.
then 3 days later,
that's just the life of a minor leaguer.
yeah, we got on the bus at midnight, drove somewhere else, got to a hotel at 6 a.m., slept till noon or 2, and went to the ballpark and did it again. Not glamorous, but I guess when you're a kid growing up dreaming of playing professional baseball, that's what you were dreaming to sign up for. So
Yeah, that was the dream, and then you were living that dream. And so that's, I mean, the details of it don't matter as much.
yeah, no, that was just part of it. But no, playing in some great stadiums, playing against some great talent. Getting a paycheck, from that first paycheck. I was living with my host family in Kingsport, Tennessee, and they said, "Do you want us to make a copy of that check for you?" So they actually, we didn't have phones back then, so or cell phones. So she made a photocopy of the check before I cashed it. And,
Oh, that's great. You still have it, I assume.
Yeah, it's buried somewhere. I'm not up on my wall or anything. It wasn't that much.
Well, listen, let's talk about when you had to make the difficult decision to end that career. Obviously, I'm interested a little bit in just that time in your head. I know, I mean, obviously it's a very hard kind of dream to walk away from. But you also have to have some sense of realization, reality and the drive to want to move on with your life. But I guess what I'm really interested in is you chose finally to retire, I think, professionally and move on, but you weren't, I don't remember you being bitter or you never were mad at the game. You wanted to stay in the game. Can you kind of talk about that? How you manage that? Some minor leaguers walk away and they're bitter about not being able to make it or their experience, but you still loved baseball.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's my third year. I mean, maybe this is why. I mean, I think I was grateful every year to have the opportunity to put on the uniform. My last spring training, I didn't know if I was making it out of spring training.
Right.
So down there, I was ready, worked out all year, all off season. I was ready to rock and roll. And they come out with your assignments, and there's 7 different teams in minor league ball. And I'm in the youngest roster. So I'm literally with all the 18-year-olds that were fresh out of high school, Dominican or players from Dominican Republic that are coming up, and it's their first time in the States playing with the Mets. And I'm in the lowest group, and I'm like, I played 3 years of college ball. I already have 2 years of pro ball under my belt. I should be 2 or 3 teams up if I have a shot. And entire day, you come in, you kind of look, where are you at? Are you still in the same group, or did they move you up or down? And I'm in the same group every single day. And once you get to like 2 or 3 weeks in spring training, that's when, guys, you show up to the locker room and pretty much you get a tap on the shoulder, go pack your bags, you're done. And it's a cruel business, but before 8:30 in the morning, somebody comes by and taps you on the shoulder, says, "Hey, Skip wants to see you." That's the end of your professional career. Pack your bag, move on. And so it literally came down to the last week where I finally started moving some teams. Like I got pushed up to the next group. And then I came in the last week and we knew there was probably 7 more cuts that needed to be made. And they took me from one of the other groups, put me all the way up to the Florida State League group, which was, that was a big jump in spring training.
Right.
Now I'm playing with guys who quite frankly, I expected to be with, but I had not been playing with them for all of spring training. So they were happy to see me. I'm happy to see them. And, quite frankly, the guys told me like, hey, it's either you or it's him. One of you two are making it as a 25th guy. You're both utility guys. I didn't know the other player. He had been a free agent pickup from the Cardinals that year. And it turned out to be like a 4-day, probably a 4-day tryout between the two of us. Wow. And we'll say for those 4 days, I got to play in every game, different positions, second, short, third. And I will say I played, for me in my professional debut at spring training, so statistics don't count, but I played probably the best 4 days of my professional career. So you come into that last day of spring training, I still have no clue if I'm making the team or if I'm driving back home to North Adams. And the coaches come out of their meeting and they walk right past me, and he's down the other end of the locker room and they tap him on his shoulder. I'm like, did I just make this team?
Is that a good tap or a bad tap?
Yeah. So he got sent home, and then once you kind of get out of the locker room to the field, you're kind of clear for the day. So I'm like, I get out to the field and I'm actually stretching with the team, and the coach is just wandering around. I'm like, hey, Skip, am I with the team? He's like, yep, you're on it. So then I had to go through everybody else on the team already had the apartments in Florida.
Right. You had nowhere to live.
So now I'm like, hey, who needs a roommate? Who's got an extra bed?
Did you sleep on a couch for a few weeks?
Yeah. So the one of the catchers had a place by himself. So he was looking for a roommate to split the rent. So I was able to join him in Port St. Lucie at an apartment complex and crash with him, which worked out well. And then, we got to pack our bags, and in Florida State League, you just go from the minor league facility over to the big league facility. So we got to move into the big major league clubhouse.
Wow. That must have been nice
So,
for a few weeks.
That's a long way because I still haven't answered your question.
I know. I wasn't going to say that, but
Yeah.
I like the stories too much.
Yeah, I mean, that was, to me, that was a big moment. But as the year went on, you play 140 games, and I realized I'm a utility player playing maybe once a week at best at times. You kind of realize where you fit in the organization. You see transactions occurring ahead of you, below you, and it just kind of got to the point where I'm like, I don't see myself being a part of the New York Mets future and, in their player development. I'm sure I could probably stay and bounce around the minors, collect a few paychecks, collect some more experiences. But at the same time, I did have my college education. So I actually came home after that season, didn't know what I was going to do for the following spring. So I was still working out, but it was the first time where I got a professional internship. I started interning at tripod.com in Williamstown.
Oh, with Tripod. Yeah. Back in the day, they were right in the middle of the boom.
Right. And so that was my first professional real internship, putting my college degree to work. And then over the course of the winter, the head baseball coach at Williams College, Dave Barnard, met with me. He's like, "Hey, what are your plans are? We have an opening in the coaching staff. We'd love to have you, join the coaching staff and start coaching." And that's when it really got me like, oh boy. So I could still stay in the game of baseball. I could still be in the Berkshires. And this internship job, looks like I'm going to have a full-time job opportunity coming out of it as well. So the winter, I think December, January got real serious for me to figure out, like, am I going spring training in March, or am I turning that to the next chapter in my life and, becoming putting the business, my college degree to work and, joining the coaching ranks. So it was a difficult decision, but, I think that certainly the opportunity to stay in the game and coach at Williams helped make it a little bit easier, to be honest with you. If I didn't have the opportunity to coach and stay in the game, I don't know.
Yeah, right. You might have tried another year or so.
Yeah. But truly between the two of them, I'm like, I no regrets. And, but I think I'm ready for the next chapter. So I retired and I had to send in my letter to, Jim Duquette from Wacona High School in Dalton and Williams to accept it. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So then, and it wasn't right away, but then the Steeplecats start coming on the radar of North Adams, which was so exciting. I remember the initial push for getting the Steeplecats into the league that, of course, you are a commissioner of now. And you were involved with that fairly early, or I know you played a lot of roles with the Steeplecats. Yeah. I know you ended up being, of course, the GM for a long time. But you were an assistant coach the first season, were you not?
Yeah. So the Warrison family came down from Keene, New Hampshire, and they, created a brand new team and the North Adams Steeplecats. And so obviously being an alum of the league, having grown up on Joe Wolf Field, I thought it'd be an honor and privilege to be a part of it. So I threw my name in to the mix for a coaching position, and they said, "I'd be happy to have you be an assistant coach." And so I joined as a hitting coach, infield instructor, and had a blast. I mean, was a unbelievable experience in North Adams and in the Berkshires that year. I mean, we were averaging, I think, 1,000, 1,200 fans a night. The place was packed. I had never seen Joe Wolf Field come to life like that.
Yeah, and those July 4th games were crazy. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I think they still hold a single season record in the league for single game record. It's like,
I should know that. If not, somebody recently broke that. I know somebody was targeting that record.
It was like 6,400 people at Joe Wolf though one night. I think it was a couple days after July 4th because you guys came home and it was fireworks night, and you couldn't move around Joe Wolf that night. It was.
Yeah, I think somebody may have been counting the people on the outside of the fence who couldn't see the game, but I'm not sure you could fit 6,400 there.
The people walking down the street.
Maybe, I'm not sure, but yeah, that first year was pretty special. I was grateful that I was a part of it, and I really had no expectations of being a general manager 2 years later at all. I thought the Watterson family were there, and it was going so well that they would just stay.
Yeah, the younger Watterson, was it Kevin? He was the GM the first couple of years?
So Kevin's the father.
Oh, Kevin's the father. Okay.
Yeah. And so Johnny,
Johnny. Yeah, Johnny.
yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Watterson.
So
yeah.
yeah, he went to the Texas Rangers, and you know that was a stepping stone for him to move into the front office at the Texas Rangers as an intern. And thankfully enough people, led by John DeRosa, stepped up to say, wait a minute, this is a really good thing in this area. We can't just let this go. So he brought a group together to keep the team locally, and asked me to do the baseball piece, which
let me ask you about taking over that baseball piece as general manager. Did you and your wife Christine talk about that a lot, or because that there's a little bit of a difference between being an assistant coach for the Steeplecats and then being the GM for the Steeplecats. I mean, if I remember correctly, there were some nights back in the day where, the team bus broke down and you had to meet them at 2:30 in the parking lot or something, and arrange help for them to get back and things of that nature. That's what a GM does in this kind of league. So you weren't involved in just picking players and putting a team on the field. You were involved in every aspect, concessions and everything.
Yeah. My wife has learned how to pull tarp. So, there are times where, you got to save the game, or you have to get the tarp off the field before the sun burns. And I think my wife's family, my family, our neighbors, I think we've all had roles in, getting the tarp on the field before a storm comes through, or getting the tarp off the field so that we can play the next day. When you recruit these players and bring them into your community, you're responsible for them, and you want to give them a great experience on the field. But it's life, and I'll never forget, we had Logan Johnson, a great ball player from the University of Louisville, up in Keene, who hit first base awkwardly, blew his ACL out, and I sent a message to Suk Nam Kung, who volunteers for the Steeplecats and has been an enormous advocate for the team throughout the years. And I text him, and he's like, "Do you want to meet the bus?" I said, "They're not going to be home till about 12 o'clock." He goes, "I'll be there." So the kid got an assessment from a team doctor, a volunteer in North Adams, at 12 o'clock at night, before before he was able to get into hospital care. And it definitely comes with a lot. Every time we did double headers, my wife and I would, or oftentimes, she would run to the market, and we'd put together all these double header snacks for in between games, whether it's peanut butter and jellies, sandwiches, or fruit cup, or oranges, bananas. And it was, we enjoyed it. We had maybe a little bit more time on our hands back then. We had one child at the time,
right,
in the early days. But we've got a lot of joy out of it. We eventually became a host family, which that exceeded all of our expectations. We didn't really know what we had heard about these great relationships. I had one myself when I was in pro ball with the Mets. But it's really, we had amazing relationships, and we've been out to see one particular player a couple times at Notre Dame and in Chicago. The kids were in his wedding.
Oh my goodness.
And we still stay in touch. We just had a kid graduate from Bryant, Ciliento, who stayed with us a couple of years ago. He graduated from Bryant, and my wife and his mother are still together, still stay in touch. So it's fun. Another one of our players from Slippery Rock just got married last year.
What was the hardest part, if you look back at it being a GM? Was it recruiting families to host players, or what was the hardest part for you?
I always say host families are the number one priority in any organization in the New England Baseball League. They are at the unlike maybe professional baseball, where you put the player at the top of the pyramid, you put the host families at the top of the pyramid, because they're the ones that open up their homes to these players from around the country who are coming in. Many of them, it's the first time truly away from home, living with another family. And, they're the ones that make the community. They're the ones that really make the organization mean something to these players. And it's a they're doing a lot for the community. I mean, you can't have a team without host families, which means, you need a lot of selfless people to open up their homes and provide a roof and a bed to these players for the summer months. And, because they do that, all of us get the benefit by going to the games and having, something to do Wednesday evening or a Sunday evening at the Joe, where go get an ice cream, a hot dog and nachos and enjoy a little hometown baseball, and really, really good baseball too.
Yeah, by the way, we haven't even talked about the quality of the league and even its improvement over, let's say, the last 18 years, since Steeplecats came into it. But before we do that, let's talk about your ascension to the commissionership of the league. You were GM for what? I want to say 7-8 years.
9 years as GM in North Adams.
Okay, and then so now somebody comes to you, or the commissioner's job opens. Either way, and you say, okay, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so never thought I'd be interested in being the commissioner of the NECBL. That's for sure. But ironically, the commissioner during my tenure when I was general manager, the commissioner was Mario Tiani. He happened to be the general manager of the Danbury Westerners when I played for Danbury. So he knew me. Mario knew me as a player. Saw my minor league career, and then had the good fortune for us to be reunited, where I worked for him as a general manager in the league that he was running as commissioner. And so when his time was kind of up and he was ready to move on and go back to doing some other things in the summer with his family, he had talked to me. He thought I'd be a good fit based on his interactions, his interactions with me as a general manager. It wasn't really something I jumped at. I will say that I was really hesitant about leaving the hometown team and, the Steeplecats, and, built, it's an organization, a reputation we had built for the last 9 years. I look around the country. I knew so many college coaches. I enjoyed those relationships. I enjoyed recruiting those players and being in the dugout. So it wasn't something I really jumped at. At the time, John DeRosa had already transitioned out of the Steeplecats, and he was actually the president of the New England Collegiate Baseball League at that time with Mario.
Yeah.
And he and I had an amazing working relationship for 7 years running the Steeplecats. And so having some conversations with him just about the direction of the league, where it's at right now, where it needs to go. I think in talking with John and Mario, I got excited about doing something different, because it is very different than when you're on the ground running one particular team, and now you remove yourself from that one team, and you're worried about 14 teams, you're worried about 400 plus players, you're worried about every game every night, whereas I only cared about what the Steeplecats were doing.
Right.
For 9 years. How are my guys? How are the coaches? What do they need? What's my community? How are the host families holding up? How are the volunteers? How are the interns? Checking in the press box. And now you're worried about 14 press boxes. You're worried about thousands of volunteers. You're worried about Mother Nature in every New England state. And
yeah, I mean that's hard.
Yeah. So
that's to keep an eye on all of that. That's got to be quite the juggling act.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully this league has so many amazing general managers or team presidents, and that's what makes it. Again, nobody's doing this for a living. All of them are volunteers in some way, shape, or form. They may be a teacher, they may own their own business. And they may be an accountant. They may be in, working in education. I mean, they're in all different fields in all 14 New England, or all 14 communities, but they all are committed to their community and committed to the league. And they're the ones that make it happen day in and day out. So there's some great partnerships with them. And it's truly, life will go on, but everybody works really, really hard to do the best job that they can do in their communities for 2 months each summer.
when you started as commissioner, I read an interview with you, and obviously from 2012, where you said the three primary aspects would be expanding the scope and influence of the league, focusing on the game of baseball and its players, and each organization within their community, the players obviously playing a role within that community. Taking those three either together or apart, how have you felt like you've grown in those three areas since you've been commissioner?
That's good research there, bringing that up. No, I'm really proud of where we're at as a league. We've come a long way in those 9 years, and again, it's because of each of the organizations buying into the vision and wanting to do the very best. I mean, in particular, this year we're moving into the analytics world, and so 7 of our ballparks this year will have TrackMan technology installed, which will track every pitch, every spin rate, every
exit. I was going to say the spin rate, the rotation.
Yep. And every one of our ballparks will have 6 cameras visible on the field, recording every action from every angle, behind home plate, behind center field, from the batter's perspective on each side, from the pitcher's perspective from each side. And those videos will be sent to Major League Baseball scouting departments in every organization. So our players essentially are playing in front of every Major League ball club every single night. And all that data is going to be accessible. It's an amazing database. It's the industry leader. Major League Baseball teams have it. Cape Cod League has it. We have it. Other summer collegiate leagues. Vanderbilt has it in their facility, and many of the big league or big time Power 5 conference Division I baseball teams have it as well. And what we're doing is we're going to give our players the forum, the atmosphere, to be their best, whether it means getting drafted or you can self-scout. I can watch all of my at-bats. I can see what I'm doing right, wrong. I can self-scout my opposing pitcher tomorrow night. I can watch his college baseball game and get ready for my game tomorrow night when I face him. So that's where the game is gone, whether we like it or not.
No,
we
definitely has gone there.
Yeah, we may see some shifts in the NECBL. That's, we haven't really seen a lot of that because we don't have the analytics. Whereas now every single at bat will be recorded and documented, and if there's an intern on one of the teams that can run the database and run a report and know what queries to run, we're going to know where Kris likes to hit the ball on 0-0 counts and what pitch he's susceptible to missing with 2-strike counts.
Oh yeah, I can tell you the answer to those. I like to hit it over the fence on 0-0 counts, and I don't like to miss pitches anywhere. So there we go. Easy scouting report for you on me. Yep. Unfortunately, I never lived up to that report. So listen, let me tell you. Let me ask you about challenges as a commissioner. You have 14 teams this year I think that's for the first time. So most they've had, or you guys have had. Just talk. It doesn't. I mean, obviously, you're coming through one of the most challenging years of your job as far as commissioner goes, because you didn't have a season last year. What were some of the things you focused once you realized you could play this year? We were talking before we came in the air about how you mandated everyone had a vaccination and proof of vaccination. Well, and that's obviously a great start to being able to have a season. What else did you think, or what did you guys have to get in order to get on the field? 14 teams.
Yeah, I mean, we put a task force together, a committee in January, I think, and started meeting every other week on Tuesday evenings just to talk about what's happening in college baseball, what's happening in our regions, and what's happening in our communities. And I mean, where we're at today it's so far removed from where we were, 3 months ago. I mean, we had talked about testing, I work at Williams College and with you, and, we know the testing protocol that they had that allowed them to play, open campus and have a safe year. Is that feasible in the NECBL? Those were hard questions to ask. We have 14 markets. Some of them have hospitals nearby. Some aren't. They're rural communities. What's the financial impact of testing programs? It's significant, and we're small nonprofits. that may not be able to take on the burden of a testing program. But how do you do this safely? We're bringing in players from around the country. So it was very, I mean, the policies that we had were very strict. They were all going to be, adhering to CDC guidelines and state guidelines.
Sure.
Obviously, once the news in April about the vaccines started coming out and the rollout, then we were able to pivot our conversations into talking about the vaccine and the mandate. The testing protocol, we were going to have to limit the number of kids who can travel on a bus, because if the bus is, comes back positive, then the other kids are going to be contact traced, which means they can't play until they get cleared. Quite frankly, if you don't have enough players who weren't on that bus playing certain positions, you won't have enough players to field a team.
Yeah, exactly.
We couldn't work, there was really no way around it. It's not economically feasible to send 2 buses to all of our games. So the vaccine really turned out to be a blessing for obviously the entire world, but really gave us the confidence that we were going to be able to play a safe and healthy season. Our host families started opening up their doors again because they felt comfortable. And that was
I was going to ask about how challenging it was to get host families for 14 teams, because I mean, Massachusetts lifted they're kind of open on the 29th, which is pretty close to the opening of your season. So you almost had to play fortune teller a little bit. Some of the people that are going to host it too, Yeah. And that's a scary thought of trying to house these kids this summer. Or it was scary. Now it's not so scary.
No, right. And this is, I can't say enough about all the team general managers and presidents, because it's just been a lot. I mean, it's hard enough to get ready for a normal season, but to throw on the mandate, the vaccine mandate, to know that you really weren't working with host families until April-ish. I mean, nobody was really going out pushing for host families in the off season because of all the unknowns. And even many of our teams backed off on sponsorships and fundraising activities because of the state of their communities and just out of respect that everybody was going through some difficult times. So all of our teams really have had to cram 6 months worth of work into about 2.5 months. And that also means, recruiting those host families. The vaccine mandate did help drastically. Once the host families knew and heard that the kids were going to be vaccinated before they arrived, that gave them reassurance, and a very high percentage came back right away. The reality is there's still others who, they're just burned out. It's just been a stressful year. They want to travel. Maybe they have more company coming to see them because they haven't been able to see their own family for such a long time.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons for why some aren't coming back, but thankfully, most of the teams are in good shape. There are a few teams right now that are still short a few beds, and as players continue to come to town, because this is a week of transition.
Because college baseball, obviously the College World Series, those players are still playing in the College World Series. Most of the other teams are done now, and so they were just eliminated like Sunday, right? So it's 4 days ago. So they're still arriving. I remember that with the Cats. We'd get some people there was a kid from Georgia who showed up like the first day of the game, or or after the first week, because Georgia was eliminated in the World Series or something. So
we had the 1 year we had the kid from Oregon State who won the national championship.
I remember that. Yeah.
I'm not sure if he even made it in the month of June. He maybe arrived in July.
Well, what do before I let you go, I wanted to ask one thing. I mean, obviously this has been a great hour of talking baseball with you and your journey through it. Your journey through life with baseball has been amazing. Yeah. But when you think about it, I was just one thought I was just having while you were speaking was, the Cats came here in North Adams 2002, so 18, 19 years now. And I remember a lot of people when this was announced and the name. Remember, I had that contest to name the team and everything. And that wonderful woman won it with the Steeplecats. But a lot of people said it's never going to work. And if you think about the limitations, the part where North Adams is and how hard it is to get here, it's not easy. And maybe the fan base would work, maybe it didn't. But what do you think over the years, over the 19 years, has really made North Adams click as a member of the New England League? It's been really impressive to me.
Yeah, no, I will say it built up a great reputation. I mean, the Joel Field can be a gem in this league, quite frankly. And I think, it might, I hear from some of the teams about, the last 45 minutes getting to North Adams, but when they get there, they see the field, they see the mount, the surrounding hills. It's a beautiful place to catch a game, beautiful
setting. Yeah.
And we always took great pride in, having the Steeplecats and Joel Field that kind of represent our region in the baseball industry in New England. I mean, we have many fans from around the area will come to North Adams to watch the Steeplecats play their hometown team. And the only thing they know about the Berkshires or North Adams might be the Steeplecats and Joel Field. So we always took a great pride in it. And, I think it's meant a lot for the area. Certainly, as a local and a citizen myself, took a lot of pride in it. As far as the fan base, I mean, it only works with the community support. And you need the dedicated volunteers and management, and you need the support. Whether it's from the local businesses. North Adams has always had a generous, population who have supported the team, philanthropy wise and through their generosity, sponsors, restaurants, host families, volunteers. I mean, it truly is a community effort. And, Matt Torr right now is serving as the president and the general manager. I don't know how he does it, have both the roles on his shoulders, but it truly takes a village to run these organizations successfully and to do it well. And certainly, I'm proud that the Steeplecats are a big part of the NECBL, and I know they're still fighting for that first
championship. Yeah, we're still looking for that.
Yeah,
maybe this year.
Exactly.
All right, Sean McGrath. Thank you so much for joining me on Spotlight on Sports for iBerkshires.com. We appreciate you having us. It was a real thrill. I am your host, Kris Dufour, and you've been listening to Spotlight on Sports, and we'll see you the next time around. Thank you for listening.